Okay, it looks like we are live already. So, hello everybody, and welcome to Hypergame Conference panel discussions. Thank you for participating. And so today is December 16th, right? And it is the perfect time to talk about what's happened in the industry over the past year and what can we expect from 2023. So, well, I'm happy to introduce colleagues at today's panel discussion, the result of 2022, conclusions and decisions. So today we have Emma Raz, Director of Commercials at NumberEight. Also, we have Daniel Kesner, Head of Publishing at Moonee, and also uh, Piyush Mishra, Head of Growth, Marketing, and Product Madness today. So, guys, I'm proud to speak to you today, and please shortly introduce yourself. We can start from Emma.
Sure, no problem. Hey, Emma Raz, Director of Commercial NumberEight. Quick about NumberEight, as we're not a gaming studio, so I don't know if you've heard. We're less familiar, you're probably less familiar with us. We're a behavioral contextual intelligence platform, basically using hardware and sensors on devices to detect the behavioral of a user at a given time. And that data is then leveraged by app publishers to basically enrich first-party data and make better decisions, understand their audiences, sell it to advertisers, and so on.
Okay. Thank you, Emma. And Daniel, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, thank you for having me today. I'm working in Moonee Publishing. We're a publishing company for in the hyper casual market. We work with different studios and developers on various genres of the games, from runners to idols. And our team is just like a bunch of gamers who live and breathe games from the morning till the night. And what we try to do together with our partners is really to support them and surround them with all the tools they need in order to help them just focus on their coding skills and master it, and hoping for together to have a mutual success.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. And Piyush, could you please tell us a few words about yourself and your company?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Piyush Mishra. I'm head of growth marketing at Product Madness. Product Madness is part of the Aristocrat Group that has Big Fish and Plarium as sister companies, and we are one of the leading studios in the social casino category, mainly focused in US and Australia market. And yeah, I'm happy to join the panel. That's enough sales pitch from me.
Okay, thank you a lot. And seems like we have a very interesting company today, right? And so, also let me introduce myself. I'm Anna Petukhova, business development manager and OpenMediation. So we have an open source code mediation platform. But basically, I'm involved in our XTIME Accelerator program, where we help developers in their self-publishing journey. And also, moreover, I'm lucky to be an organizer of Indie Clash, a mobile game competition, where we help mobile game developers to showcase their game already second year. So I think we can go to our topic. And so, Emma, could you please share how was 2022 for you? How it was for your company?
Good question, a challenging question, but okay, let's do this. I like the previous Daniel. I like the whole breathing and leaving games. I mean, that's that just sounds like a good life, coming from a background of gaming. But I mean, let's see, how's 2023? A lot of ups and downs. I think that's across the board, as we are still undergoing a lot of changes. We're looking at the challenges in the industry. Like, our challenges are kind of related to the industry challenges, or at least they come out of it. So we are looking at an ever-changing marketplace when we're still really trying to figure out what do we look like following the recent changes, either in policies, in privacy, in regulations, and so on. A lot of consolidation, a lot of regrouping and rethinking and reimagining what we should do, though some of it is more, some of the solutions are more imaginative than others. Of course, innovation is hard, innovation is scary. And then there is the whole layer also of indecisive policies. So I don't know if that's doing us any good or bad. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. If we're looking at Apple, they say, we're going to do this. We're like, no fingerprinting. None of it was enforced. If that is like better than like enforcing everything. It seems like we're kind of in a limbo when we started changing, but we're still ongoing changing, and we haven't really seen what life looks like at the end of the tunnel or what it's really all means. For looking at overall achievement, or what we did in this year, well, we successfully launched the first in-moment targeting solution in the world, so that's nice. In-moment targeting requires quite a lot of technological background, as you do need to do fun things like edge computing and sitting on device and being able to do a lot of fast math on the edge device of the user. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to be part of it, and it's pretty cool to be in like that innovative in this space. As innovation, as I said, it's always scary, it's always hard. Looking at things like sentient environmental intelligence, which has never been looked at before, and how that all feeds into the gaming space, and how can we understand what gamers are actually doing while they play the game. And that's, I think, a lot of our focus is developing this real analysis of who is a gamer and what does it all mean for gaming, and who plays the different games, how they play them, how they interact with them, and what it all means for gaming, whether, again, it's for more of a targeting, advertising perspective, both for UA and for monetization, or even of how that impacting our purchases or in-game economy or in-game design. If we're looking at like overall, like kind of side note is I've also been speaking with a lot of agencies. Just because part of it, we work in advertising space, I also speak with a lot of agencies. I have seen that's connected to us a lot of interest from agencies in the space of gaming, where they come and ask me a lot for input of who's a gamer and what does it all mean. I think they have a lot of interest. They're looking to go more direct. They're looking to collaborate more in games, and they don't understand the space, and they are looking or thirsty for more insights and data, which is why I usually get pulled into these situations. But I think we'll see that will kind of impact what we're seeing right now. What I see this year will probably continue evolving. That's it for me.
Oh yeah, thank you, Emma. I think you achieved a lot this year, right? Even if it was challenging. Piyush, could you please share with us what was challenging you and what did you manage to achieve this year?
Achievement is a bit of a difficult one, but no, I mean, we did manage to achieve a lot of things. Jokes aside, I'll come purely from an advertiser standpoint. I think that's the good thing about this panel, that we're all coming from three different perspectives. From our perspective, I think the biggest challenge for us was actually understanding, and because what happened during 2020 and 2021 was give you an inflated sense of your user base in certain sense in all the gaming department, right? Because you actually like overall revenue and number of users playing the game, everything went up. 22 was actually the baseline for this was a comparison with 2019 and not 2020 and 2021, right? Because those 2 years were sort of inflated because of COVID, and then now you're back to the real sort of setup, right? So that was the biggest challenge, as to understand who are the users who came back, and then when they're leaving right now, what is the revenue impact? How do we sort of get to the same level of revenue, which we were able to achieve, by the way? That is one of the achievements, that we were able to consistently deliver on the revenue that we were aiming for in certain sense, and the growth that we were aiming for. But it was a bit of a challenge in that sense, because like 2021 and 2020 showed higher number of users, more revenue and stuff, and then obviously it went down in 2022, and to get back new users, to figure out new markets and stuff like that, that was a challenging year in that sense. And obviously, as a marketeer, personally speaking, I don't want to get into privacy, but just adapting to all the all changes in privacy and stuff, like that was a huge challenge. And I would say, like, as a company, I think we did decently well, obviously. But yeah, I mean, just adapting, and because we are in flux right now, it's not like it's a settled proposition, right? It will keep on happening. Next year it's going to be Google Privacy Sandbox and stuff, but just adapting to how the changes are happening, and as a company moving in that direction, adapting to the new sort of an era, a privacy era in certain sense, is something that we also achieved. So yeah, from a marketing standpoint, this one, and the company, the overall revenue target.
It does help to have really good games.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's all about the product team. I don't want to take all the credit as a marketing org, but obviously it really, really, really helps
I will give,
if you have the if you have the good apps.
I was giving you a compliment, but I'll take it. It was all just marketing. You the game are crap. They're not good. Like it's all just marketing, and that's it.
I wanted to do that, but I'm like, you have to be honest, right? I mean, it's a product team, and it's obviously a mixed effort. But yeah, I mean, it's product. It really helps when there's a good product. You put me in a spot, Emma. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you, Piyush. Yeah, it was interesting to hear about this nation in your company. And Daniel, could you please share for us how was your 2022? How was it for your
Sure.
company?
Well, as everyone said, it was a challenging and surprising year, full of surprises. Personally, I love surprises, but some people don't really like it. The companies, us in general, everyone in the industry, had to adjust to pivot some strategies. And to see how we overcome some challenges that this year brought, especially after COVID time, as was mentioned here also. But also changes are an opportunity for us to grow our market share and to grow in terms of our company. So it gives us more motivation to be better, more innovative, work more efficiently. I can say that despite all of those challenges this year and the really high competition in the industry, in the market, we were able to still keep a really fast growth in the company in-house, in terms of the products we provide for our partners, tools we have, and also for the teams, different departments, which is for me, as I'm in the company from the start, it's very exciting, to see how we still keep our growth, and able to overcome some challenges together with new teammates. So yeah, in addition to what they mentioned here about the users and the challenges in the game itself, economy, also in terms of for the studios that we are working with, it's been quite a challenge, and I think we will keep seeing the effect of it for next year. I mean, I guess it's no secret that studios need to pivot themselves faster and adjust to the changes, and maybe being a little bit smaller can be an advantage at the end for some studios in the next year. So that could be very interesting to see how it affects our industries and our partners, and also the way we work with our partners. But personally, I'm excited. I like challenges. So if it's not boring, it's good.
So Daniel, do you have any tips for your studios? How get them ready for these changes as soon as possible? What do you recommend to your partners?
Well, there are a lot of things that can be done. And of course, every time I speak to a studio, I tell them I never manage a studio. I'm not a studio manager. I can't even put myself in your position, but I can say that it's obvious that being smaller is an advantage, because the deals we saw in the past are not the deals we see these days. And the strategies of the publishers and the strategies of the studios are not what we saw 3 years ago or 2 years ago when the industry was booming. And it's a hyper industry. It's changing very, very fast. And I believe the best tip is find your partner and believe in it. I mean, even if it's not the deal you dreamed of, sometimes the deals that have the bigger cash may not have the advantages in terms of partnership you were hoping for. So I believe each studio needs to just be believe in their way, in their partner, have like a ground to put the foot on, and really go together for the long run, and believe in the process. I think that the major success in the industry for publishers and studios together is for the long run partners that work together and study together and see how we team as partners, and it's not like a client customer kind of communication.
Okay, thank you a lot. Thank you. So, guys, it was impressive to know about your companies and how it was in 2022. So, let's talk about the industry in general. You mentioned some of the aspects. So, what do you name as the most important challenge for the whole mobile game development industry in 2022? And maybe, Piyush, you can share some thoughts about this. What do you think it was the biggest challenge? the industry?
I mean, as an industry, I'll say, I mean, again, so I co-host a podcast in the Sandbox with Adam Smart, and we were just discussing about a couple of things, and I'm quoting David Phillipson from DataSeat here. He said that the biggest challenge that we're seeing with the privacy changes is how the small gaming studios would actually make money, right? Because I think that's the biggest change. Because what's happening, like when you shift from a user behavioral targeting, right, to a contextual targeting, all the bigger publishers obviously would get the bigger share, because obviously those publishers and the users in those, or for those publishers, would convert for any advertising, right? But when you the exploration part of the entire industry was always based on user level data, right? When you say exploration, that any new publisher that is out there that you want to test out and stuff like that, it's based on user level data, and you used to do it very heavily. You always used to allocate 10%, 15% of the budget to sort of explore and understand which is the new inventory that you can unlock and stuff like that. I see with the privacy era that thing's sort of changing, because when you move to a contextual targeting, you don't know if the new apps or the new bucket of inventory, what would convert and what won't. So I do believe the smaller publishers, that's why even hyper casual sort of suffered, right? I mean, 20% of revenue went down in hyper casual this year, almost, roughly, if I'm not incorrect. But you do suffer from the consequences of the whole shift to scan on iOS, and the changes that are going to affect on the privacy side with Google as well. So the smaller publishers trying to make money, trying to be out there in terms of earning money and actually doing ad monetization. I think that is going to be a struggle for the next 1 or 2 years, because inherently there is a bias in scan in certain way to actually cater to bigger publishers, and that's the whole thing around contextual targeting as well. So I do believe that's one big challenge. The other thing also is, I mean, as again, purely coming from a marketing standpoint, the M&As that are happening, right? The acquisitions that are happening right now, and obviously it is at a very macro level. I understand the need for it. I understand the timing as well, because with privacy only, it was supposed to be kicked, like with the whole Iron Source deal and the Atchus deal, Apple deal, right? But it's also becoming a bit of like whenever you're trying to catch up, there's something new happening, right? Whenever you're the acquisition is not just limited to the ad tech industry; it's also in the gaming space. Microsoft acquiring bigger companies out there, so it's across the board, and it's just M&A. The interesting bit to see is, will this continue in 2023, or this is sort of just gonna die down over a period of time. Obviously there will be 1 or 2 acquisitions here and there, but this year was the year of M&A in both ad tech and gaming space. So interesting times. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what's happened. Emma, can you share some thoughts about this also?
Absolutely. I'm kind of like adding to what Piyush said before, because my main challenge, and of course I come from the data space, so like also that's what I see.
Yeah.
So data and data activation is what I've seen as one of the biggest challenges, also because we haven't really dug into this traditionally in the gaming space. We haven't invested as much in data, unlike things like e-commerce, when people have a full customer profile. The first thing is getting the data. As how do you generate, especially smaller companies, how do you generate first-party data to even have that data in the first place, to get to know your audience? And it's something that we haven't really invested in, because we had IDFA, we had IDs, and therefore those could be used to find people, and we didn't need to know anything else about them. IDs were good enough. And now we're moving away from that, and we need to start getting to know the audience a bit better, so we can target them or interact with them and communicate with them in a different way. Big change, which is already a big change and already a big undertaking, and it's something that you need to think about. And then there's a layer of how do we then activate the data? So once we get the data, what do we do with the data, and how do we actually leverage it? And if we look at the programmatic space is currently unprepared to really support first-party data. Seller-defined audiences framework was released by IAB, but it currently hasn't been massively adopted. Even with Google saying that they will, they haven't. It's not live and robust just yet. So it's still in its infancy. So nobody knows 100% how much you're able to leverage first-party data. When we're looking at, and that kind of impacts both your monetization revenue and your UA effort. So on the one hand, if you don't have IDs, and you're not able to leverage first party data, then you're unable to effectively monetize or address your audience as much. Therefore, revenues will go down, and you're also not able to whale hunt. So, like, I think in more core games and more like medium core and things like games like Casual Casino, you would want to know your audience and actually find who are the right people, because in-app purchase is a big part of it. So targeting is meaningful. Contextual is such a hard word, because you mentioned contextual, and I mean, we used to say, okay, I'm currently debating terminologies in the company internally, so this is a good time to talk about it. Contextual traditionally meant was content, right? So contextual means the content you're part of. However, when I speak about contextual, I usually mean who is this person? What are they doing? What is their environment? Are they currently commuting? Are they a pet owner? Like, my husky is lying right here, so like I'm distracted. Are they a shopper? Who are these people, and what are they looking for in life? So when you're starting to dig a bit further, especially in gaming, beyond just what else what is the content they're looking at, you can do a lot more. Of course, with just content, you'll be limited just because within the gaming environment, I mean, the context won't mean as much. You'll be in a similar game, but that's about it. It won't be as powerful. I think, again, we'll need the industry itself will need to evolve in 2023. Hopefully that will happen. So the entire effectiveness of programmatic will need to evolve to leverage data better. But games will also probably need to take ownership and take control and kind of drive this.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like really challenging, especially for small publishers, right? So, and also, like, according to some, Piyush already mentioned, already mentioned that right now in 2022 we see a decline trend, right? And according to revenue, and also according to Sensor Tower Industry Trends report, the mobile game market experienced first year-over-year decline, right, in 2022, down to almost 6%. So, guys, do you think about the situation? Should we expect this decline will be continued in 2023? Daniel, can you share your thoughts about this?
Yeah, so what's going on in the world in general also affects at the end our industry and gaming industry, of course, and people are spending less, and at the end it's relevant for the gaming industry and what we do in the games. Big companies are spending more on acquiring users and less on branding, so this is also at the end affects our metrics and our data, and we are at the end of Q4, and we saw, I think we can all agree that it wasn't a usual Q4 we are used to see. And it's a big challenge, but also a big opportunity as well. As you know, we have less brand competition, so we can be more aggressive in some ways. But in order to really win this challenge, we need to use this opportunity in a smart way, meaning that with the right game, and by right game I mean that users are, I don't want to speak in general, but it seems that users are looking for more content game, something for the more longer run. Execution of the game should be higher. So I believe that with the right game, publishers like us, for example, can really take this challenge and make it an opportunity at the end. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Piyush, do you have something to add about this?
No, as I said, right. It depends on
Yeah.
what year you're comparing to, in a certain sense, right? So 2022 maybe it went down, but 2021, 2020 were sort of inflated. But having said that, it's also in the effect of recession that is happening right now. People actually spending less amount of time, less amount of money actually on the app, and also the privacy changes that in turn affected hyper casual, because hyper casual is one of the most new game generating sort of the category in gaming, right? But with the changes that are happening, with ad monetization not functioning as it used to because of lack of device ID in the hyper casual space, that's also sort of in turn affecting the overall behavior. But I do believe this is not something that is a huge sort of a factor, except hyper casual, which is obviously it's a different conversation altogether. Because if you look at the number of gamers across the board, the number of gamers are increasing year on year. So the interest in gaming altogether is actually going up and up. I think the stats that we need to sort of also look into, and that would be interesting to look at, how many new games were created, right? Did that reduce the creation of new games? Did that reduce? If it did, in what category did it reduce, right? I mean, in some categories it might have be there because there's subcategories in there, right? And because in my category, I can say that it's not like we are seeing a downward metric in that sense. So it depends on the subcategory as well. And the other thing I also want to add is, like, if you look at overall, the shift that is also happening to Web3 gaming, and like sort of the push that is happening. Obviously, we have not had a very successful game in that year, but there's a lot of effort and resources in this year by bigger gaming studios as well to push more Web3 games and more NFT games and stuff like that, right? So there's also a push in there that is something that they're putting in the effort now, but would encash at a later stage, right? So I do believe there are these three sort of just additional things that I wanted to add to what Daniel said.
Okay, thank you, Piyush.
I mean, I would
Sure,
actually. I would actually say that like recession might even impact, like increase the amount of time we spend, like user spends on game, as if other activities are cut, they might, like, because if it's free to play, then this might actually increase the amount of time spent on game. However, the spend on game might decrease. Because of like economic recession.
Yeah.
It means that you need to be a bit more savvy about your optimization, your economy, your design, the entire thing needs to be a bit more savvy. And that's how you kind of take control over it. Because I mean, yes, of course, it was inflated because of COVID, but I do think gaming overall will continue increasing with time. I think at some point we might have to get to a place when like 99.9% of the population actually play games. But like, what does it mean? What does it look like? How much money is spent? That might shift based on other pressures.
Yeah, I think
So,
what you're saying,
Emma,
Emma,
kind
is
of-
like, sorry, please go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Piyush.
No,
Continue.
I was just adding, like, I was just
I would
discussing
love
with
to
Emma,
hear your
like, I
thoughts
think,
about this. No, yeah.
no, I was just referring to what Emma said, right? I mean, what you're saying, Emma, is basically the amount of time played in the game would have increased, but the
Yeah.
revenue coming from the game would have decreased, right? At a very
Could be.
broader level.
I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I might consider happening in 2023. So if you're looking at people, it depends on also how you're measuring revenue, what's your revenue source, and that's something
Yeah.
actually an answer to a different question. But if you have a revenue source of in-app purchases mainly, and people are spending less money on in-app purchases, or you're able to, so the whales might still spend, but you have less dolphins and you have less people coming in and spending all cash, then you might see there as an impact because you're relying on advertising and advertising budget. So I've been asked a lot of times if advertising budget will drop. What I mostly suspect, it will just, the advertisers themselves might change. So we won't have the same advertisers, but overall the budget will stay somewhat stable. But that also depends on how like what games do moving forward, how much we also allow brands to enter the space, how much we are like games taking control of their own economy and so on. And that's kind of like discovery for this year. That's actually one of my things. I do suspect that more and more games will start to take ownership over their own even advertising economy. And that's also what I've seen starting to happen this year. And I already see that continuing to happen in 2023. So which means
No, I agree with you. I mean, the advertising budget shift, I mean, obviously you can see statistically that the advertising budget allocation has reduced, but I do believe that it's the media mix that would change. The advertising dollars might not reduce to the level that we expect, and it also depends on what Google does next year. It's a very, very big thing that is coming up, the Google Privacy Sandbox. But yeah, I do believe that media mix would evolve. It would not be the same. Obviously, given the M&As that are also happening in the market, you won't stick around to working with 6 DSPs or 6 networks, and would cut it down to 2 or 3 because you're working in a contextual space now. You're not buying users anymore. You're buying an audience. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of it's been an interesting year, and it's gonna let's see what 2023 does.
Absolutely. And also when like you're buying an audience, that audience can be just gamers, but we're working for example, with a lot of games to actually layer that to who's the gamer. And then that unlocks a whole new budget. But yeah, that's a very long conversation that we might want to take offline.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you think we can learn from this? How can you prepare your studio and your team for what can happen in 2023, for example. How should you be ready in advance? Emma, can you share some ideas about this?
How do you prepare?
Yeah.
You put the helmet.
That just
Don't
sounds
think that's
like
gonna
that's
help.
Israeli response, and everyone always excuse me for having like military related like examples and like yes, put a helmet on and get some like prepare yourself, but in mostly like invest in experimentation, invest in data. From my perspective, again, I come from data. That's what I work on. So obviously, that's a lot of what I see as a good baseline with Privacy Sandbox, and I can share like again maybe later if we want to know what exactly does this mean and how much information can be accessed, not accessed, and so on. As we run tests on it as well, we need to think of how do we take bigger jumps, and I know that it's scary. Because we want to obviously like if we have done something in a certain way all this time, we want to do it as similar as possible, not necessarily taking a leap of faith. But sometimes we kind of have to if we want to really do better, and also not having to change the method. And 3 months later, we have to change again because something has shifted. We might have to make bigger steps in terms of actually shifting what we are doing. And leveraging technology better. So there's new things that we can do, new platforms, new way of working, basically new way of computing data and processing it and thinking of it. Again, it's just mostly like that capacity, that mindset, and being able and willing to do it. I think that will, partnering up with the right people, that will allow a lot of things to happen. It's not easy. It's not cheap necessarily to invest in things, but it pays off in the long run.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, we should pay more attention to the technologies, and maybe we have some new technologies this year. Were there some discoveries this year, or maybe some interesting things that you can mention right now? Daniel, can you say some thoughts about this?
Sure, definitely. So jokes aside, I really think, as I mentioned also before, the challenges are only an opportunity, and if we come ready, we can only make a success out of it. In terms of the discoveries and what can help us for next year is really innovation. So we focus that the AI in the game development that already started will keep being a very important key player for the next year. I can tell you that internally we have created a few MVPs to assure the game improvement and optimizations, some tools of A/B testings, in-house dashboards that we also for some of them give full access to our partners so they can take some advantage out of it. Developing some new departments in the company that focus on game economy or monetization or just product, and very specific stuff that can really help us support the whole system of winning the game. So yeah,
That's super cool.
Okay. Yes, definitely. So Emma, you have some maybe also some insights about new things and technology and how mobile game developers can use it.
Me, well, what I think is interesting is kind of I see a lot of synergies also between other industries. So because I don't only like I work in the gaming space and I came from the gaming space, but I also work in other industries. And that means I see sometimes synergies of how those overlap. So CTV becoming a bit more gaming collaborating with CTV, like things like utilities coming into VR and AR, and for like, so how do you leverage those technologies for utility and like productivity and functionality? And then how do you use them? Platforms like TV to leverage gaming and to create games and new gaming experiences. And I think that could be quite interesting as if we're looking at how do we make it gaming more mainstream and how more ingrained within our society, is creating those synergies between the different platforms and making it as just one thing that we do in around our day. So just one more element. I think there's a lot of interesting things that can be done there and will enhance all of the experience across board, and also just basically bring gaming really to the heart of our daily life. But I'm curious to hear more about this AI thing. I'm gonna let Daniel tell more about it. I mean, obviously, it's also like a lot of what we did. Like a lot of what we do is like thinking of how to use physical environmental data within game economy design, which is what I love to do. But that is just advertising NumberEight, and I think I'm not supposed to do that. So like, I just.
Okay, that's okay. So Piyush, can you maybe tell us what your company use, or maybe you heard that some other game development companies are using right now, start to use in 2022, or maybe what do you expect mobile game developers can start to use, what kind of technology in 2023?
Technology is a huge term,
Yeah.
so I'm coming from a marketing space, so I'll keep my answers to my area of expertise. Uh, I'll suggest one thing maybe to game developers out there when they're trying to do marketing. I do believe there needs to be a gradual shift to brand marketing. I do strongly believe about that because I'm saying that there's a huge amount of clutter in the market right now. With the whole changes to the privacy thing, you are no longer buying users, which means your brand needs to stand out in certain sense. So at least the bigger gaming advertisers would benefit from a reallocation of performance marketing budget into brand. I mean, CTV is part of it, for example, and TV and influencers and stuff like that. Obviously, whatever you can do to sort of push. So that's one trend that I do believe could benefit a lot of
Okay, it looks like there's some. Can you hear Piyush, Emma,
No,
Daniel?
he
I can hear
froze.
Ah,
you.
okay.
I think you
And I can
froze.
hear
Oh,
you.
okay.
You froze, poor thing.
Yeah. Okay, I think there might be some problem with Wi-Fi connection. Happens. Don't talk about technology. Let's talk about what impressed you the most in game development in the last year, and not in the last year. We are still in 2022 actually. So yeah, what impressed you the most in 2022 in terms of game development? Maybe some new game titles or new things, or I don't know. Daniel, can you share your thoughts about it?
Sure. So, I've been in the market for almost 3 years now, and I've been working with, I think it's fair to say, more than hundreds of studios in the market, in the industry, that make different genres. Each one has, their own favorite genre, or specialize in different kind of hyper casual games. And I believe what really impressed me the most is the ability of those studios that I know for a long time to grow and adapt for new types of games, for the competition. And for different business models, I have some partners. I've been working with them since they were solo developers, and now they have their own studio, and it's very exciting. And it's very impressive. This industry is, as I mentioned, very hyper. You should have some really internal mental strength to keep up with the pace of the industry and the competition, and don't lose your faith in having the success in your hand. And even when you do have the success in your hand, it's not that easy. You have to sustain it, you have to work on it. Nothing comes for free. So I believe that what impressed me the most is the professional side and personal side of those partners of us that really were able to keep going and keep believing.
Yeah. So it's still all about persons, still all about people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
From my side, because again, I'm working directly with the partners. So yeah.
Emma, did you see anything impressive about game development this year?
I mean, I always see things that are impressive about game development, and every year and so I play every day. I manage to continue the habit of playing every day.
What type of games do you usually play? What type of
How
games
many
do you
type of
have
games?
right now on your
Well,
mobile?
I have two phones, iOS and Android, and I have different games on each of them, and it varies from more core to hyper casual. And because I've been working with studios and publishers for 7 years. So I think of games by studio. So literally, I would go and look at the studio and what they have released. So when people ask me why do you play, and it's like I have this game by this by Miniclip or by by Triple Dot Studio, by Voodoo, whatever. Well, right now I think I also have Jam City and a whole range of others. So I know my games by studios. What can I do? It's a habit. But we're gonna let Piyush continue. I'll just say that
I missed you.
Piyush to continue.
No, this was weird. You asked me about technology, and technology failed me. It's
Always happens. Always. Especially I had to move to a
always.
Mac. So Apple, let me know. I want a new Mac or something. Like I don't know. We need to talk with Apple about my
This,
computer.
this happened on Mac, by the way. I have a Mac, and it just
Yeah.
we can't always support Apple given scan.
I mean,
But
I really think that we need to go and talk to Apple like about a computer.
let's have the meeting together. I have a lot of complaints.
Okay, we'll share notes and we'll approach Apple together. And say,
It's a perfect topic for another panel discussions. Yeah, maybe we should organize something like this
Yeah.
next time.
well,
No, but
Yeah. Okay.
no. Let's
Yeah.
I'll answer this and then I'll circle back to you about technology. Impressive about. Well, my impressive is I've seen gaming take ownership about their own monetization destiny, which was impressive, creating and in-housing a lot of the activities, which were just remarkable. From Miniclip to Voodoo and a whole range of other games, whether it's developing their own mediation, developing their own ad stack, developing and starting to sell directly. So basically taking ownership and taking control, probably because everyone keep buying each other and they don't want to depend on like 3 people. But really, really fascinating. And of course, the rise of, I do find fascinating the rise of new ad formats, mostly because of how that shifts the whole economy and economy design. And how do you then play with it and what it all means. So in-app advertising has been around for a while, but I think this has been a year when audio in-app really gained some traction of what it all means. I can't wait to try to design all of this ads format into one game and make it somehow successful. Like if someone will want to give me a game to play around with, I'll have fun. But yes, Piyush, technology has failed.
Technology has failed us. Yeah, just continuing on what I was saying on a different topic altogether. But no, the first thing that I was saying, obviously, the shift to brand marketing, as I was suggesting, right? I do believe there will be advertisers reallocating their budget. That's the first thing. The second interesting bit that I'm waiting for in 2023 is the side loading by Apple. So European authorities have sort of forced Apple to sort of allow side loading. That's going to be an interesting change. I don't know how the app stores would evolve in that sense, but it's an interesting thing to keep a close track on. And obviously, the third thing, I do believe that the media mix that you're seeing in 2021, for example, won't be the same as 2023, right? Because of first M&A and second, obviously, contextual targeting. Because of the shift to contextual targeting, you will sort of start relying less on huge number of sort of partners, and you will cut down the number of partners. I do believe you'll cut down the number of partners. You will sort of go back and go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I just want to run with like 5-6 partners that are actually working for me. Take the other budget out, put it into maybe brand marketing or influence or something like that. So the media mix in certain sense would change. So yeah, these are the 3 sort of key things to look at in 2023. And also, just one thing I want to advise everybody on the gaming side is obviously to be adaptable. The only reason to say that is privacy changes that are happening. It happened in 2022. It's going to happen in 2023. By 2024 is when the dust would settle. Even right now, if you look at just the data inconsistency that there is with scan and with changes that Facebook not sending Android user level data and stuff like that, like just the data that you're receiving as an advertiser, it is a huge shift from what we used to get and what we are getting right now. And it's right now in a stage of when it's in a state of transition. The dust has not settled yet. With Scan 4.0 introduction, it's going to become more complicated. So from Scan 2.0 to Scan 4.0, that's another sort of a story. So just to be adaptable and accept the new form of attribution and the new form of data that you're receiving, and just start adapting to it and sort of taking ownership of however the industry is playing right now.
Yeah, and Piyush, I already asked Emma and Daniel about what impressed users here the most in game development. Maybe any game, maybe and some new mechanics. I don't know. Can you share something?
I mean, honestly, the most impressive sort of discussion that I had was with three co-founders of a gaming studio, which was, I think,
Yeah.
City Smash, if I'm not mistaken. There's a game called City Smash and World Smash and stuff. It was mostly a simulator
Yeah.
game, action simulator game.
Mhm.
They reached 60 million downloads without doing any advertising. Zero UA, 60 million downloads only through influencer marketing. That was also organic, not paid. So I mean, obviously this puts me out of a job, but just it's just interesting to see how sort of they like. I had a quick conversation. We got them on the podcast, and I was just amazed as to how they sort of like organically. It wasn't like they paid the influencers. It was all organic. So I started playing that game. It's interesting. It's just
Yeah, that's definitely
literally
impressive.
blowing up the world. Yeah, it's just blowing up the world and blowing up the city. But it's interesting to see how they sort of the features. Then so like going back to what Emma said, and she roasted it before. If the product is good, it's gonna work. So
Exactly.
It
the product
helps.
was great. It helps.
However, it's also luck,
So
right? I mean, I've known another game a while back when I first entered gaming. Like there was, I mean, I was having this women in gaming lunch, and the woman sitting next to me was a VP of a gaming company in Finland, and their game got millions of downloads in a couple of months by going viral on
TikTok.
Twitter back then, because TikTok was not that big of a deal when I started. What can I do? But on Twitter back then, and then um, and then basically because college students were in their exam periods and they were looking for some distraction, and it kind of went exploded. So I think your timing, your
yeah,
luck, a few things around.
Wow.
It's like the bucket, like it's like the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but
things just work, and you have no idea how to replicate it and what the hell happened exactly in people's mindset, but it worked.
but
So
it's also luck,
true.
but also
That's
knowing to take advantage of this
yeah,
luck, So, I mean, you can
yeah.
have
Yeah.
millions of installs and don't know what to do, and then you just lose the opportunity. So,
some people
Exactly. I
still
mean,
do.
obviously, like for every failure, there are like 90. For every success, gaming startup, like there are 99 that have failed. So obviously, there is that. But yeah, I mean, this was interesting to me. As a marketer, I just thought, okay, wow. I mean, that's there. That's good.
when we had a makeover run, I'm not sure if you guys know it, but it's one of our hits from
Yeah.
last year. It started from being very viral on TikTok, like 5 million views on videos that we didn't make. Like users like the video, like the game, and they made like some just videos about it on TikTok, and it got like millions of viewers. And this is how it all began. Like we understood it's gonna be viral. So I believe, like, I'm a believer in luck, and I'm a very optimistic person in general, but I believe that we need luck in everything in life, but we also need to be like smart. So yeah.
I would really appreciate, Daniel, if you can tell that to Apple that we need luck. Uh, they are sort of
I'll
they are
try.
sort
I'll
of
try.
moving.
Okay.
No, but
Daniel,
like
Daniel will join our complaint letter to Apple.
no,
We all
definitely.
want-
Let's all three sort of collaborate. But that's an interesting bit, right? I mean, the bigger point that I was trying to make also is like the community-driven gaming.
Mhm.
That's also sort of a thing, like because right now from Discord and Reddit and stuff like that, there is a community-driven gaming companies that are out there that are completely relying on the feedback from the gaming to introduce new features and stuff like that, right? So that's also a good shift that has happened because the audience all of a sudden are engaging in how the product development would be.
Yeah.
So that's also an interesting shift in this case.
Yeah. So according to this idea that game developers need luck and also to be smart, can you maybe share some tips for game development studios and publishers for the next year? What should they do? Yeah. How should they be prepared and everything? Yeah. Daniel, Emma, who wants to start?
Sure, I'll go ahead. So I believe I mentioned some of the stuff already. But the first one is really find a partner and stick to him. Believe in the partner, and try to be open to learn from him. So I think it goes both ways. When I'm working with a studio, they are my partners. I should believe in them, and we should be very open-minded about each of our decisions and thoughts. So for hyper casual developers, it's very important not to get too attached to the games because you have to know when to let go of an opportunity. That being said, there is a very thin line from letting go the opportunity to really believe in it and not giving up because you should try to push the game as much as you believe in it if you really think you have a gold egg in your hands, but also be open for the tips from people that saw like hundreds of games similars and understand the overall data in big numbers. So that's the biggest tip I can give. And obviously always look for the next trend. And when I'm saying looks for the next trend, of course we have the general places like TikTok, Twitter. Now I see everywhere in our life, but also, for example, if I give Find Yellen, one of our games, it was is still a major success from our company. The idea came from one of the game designers' dream at night. So, I think that game designers are super creative people and game developers, and always believe in the ideas you have. Try to find some, marketability that supports the fact that it can be trendy, but, you just have to have the faith and I guess the will to work very hard to succeed.
Basically telling game developers to literally dream.
Well, like all of us, we are all dreamers at the end.
Of course. I'm just like, as I said, I'm just quoting. I'm going to have my favorite quotes from you afterwards. I mean, I literally am collecting.
Piyush, can you share your top 5 tips to colleagues and also game developers?
Top 5.
In
I
the
don't even
year,
have
next
one. I'm
year.
a marketeer, but
Oh,
but
sorry.
no, but no, but to be honest, like purely, I think what Daniel said obviously makes sense because believing in the partner that you're working with, it's very very important. I do believe her strategy for hyper casual is very very clear. That I've seen this because I have friends in the industry who are sort of building hyper casual games, and they sort of get stuck in the zone that the game has to work. Sometimes it just doesn't. You have to sort of get away from it and put your resources into a new one. But yeah, I mean, from a game development standpoint, I don't have a lot of tips. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I just listed a bunch of them. But yeah, I don't do game development, so I'm probably the wrong guy. Emma, do you have some?
I mean, I've already said a lot about data, so I'm obviously a big believer in data. Also my own, because I run also a marketing team, and we measure everything. So that's kind of like where we lie. I would say use data for economy design. Economy design is both an art and a science. Leverage that. Be creative also in your economy. Again, it sounds very businessy, but economy is almost emotional. So because people react, like people buy things from an emotional place, people react to things from an emotional place. So like you really need to think of how that all flows, and it all needs to make sense. But layer data to kind of prove it and make sure that it's like you're actually correct. I think for all the gaming, we said a lot about luck and virality. So how took a break from tech and went into nonprofit. I was there for a year and a half. And then trying to how to get people to donate and how to get people to support an animal welfare nonprofit. So you look at a lot about how do you do social activation and people activation, how do you get things to go viral. The true trick is you try like 100 things and one success. Like there's one out of that 100 things that you've tried to go viral, one kind of succeeds, and you only talk about that one, but you actually tried like 100, like 99 other things that did not work out. So with virality and all of that and creating luck, you just basically try different things until something sticks. Like try to throw some pasta at the wall and see which one is ready.
The numbers are actually even like for us, like at least, in the hyper casual, it's more like 1 out of 250 for actually having a hit.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of pasta. Boil a lot of pasta and then throw it to the wall.
Yeah, so this is why I said
Emma,
studios need to work fast to adjust themselves to be, pivoting for working faster so they have more opportunities faster.
So yeah, in the end, be lucky, check the data, and find a good therapist for your team, right? Looks like to be ready for the next year.
I mean, I have a therapy dog. She comes to the office if you want to. If you, like, you can come
Oh,
give my husky a hug. You'll feel better.
I'm gonna
yeah,
contact you,
sounds
Emma.
perfect.
Come visit.
And guys, let's speculate about the next year or even maybe 3, or at least 1 year, right? What can we expect from next year? What kind of trends? What do you think is the biggest trend we can expect? Piyush?
Yeah, I mean, again, from marketing standpoint, I'll say one big thing that I'm still waiting for is, will probabilistic be paused? And if that is paused, what happens to other DSPs and ad networks? I'm curious to see what happens, because I don't, based on my experience, and I'm going to limit it to my experience, I don't see DSPs and ad networks being ready for a world when there is no probabilistic, right? So I don't know how they're going to react to the new situation. And I do believe that Apple is sort of waiting for scan to be perfected in certain sense, for scan to be good enough for them to pause probabilistic, because till now it wasn't. Let's be very, very honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't good enough. So with scan 4.0, I think there is a potential for, because they're giving you long-term LTV up to 35 days, there's a potential for us to understand long-term LTV, for us to start optimizing towards that. That means that there is a potential for Apple to stop probabilistic. If that happens, what happens to the ad networks and DSPs? That's one interesting bit. The second, as I said, it's something that we are also trying, which is the shift to sort of brand advertising. I do believe that change would happen. The media mix would evolve. Yeah, those are the two things from my side.
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. Emma, what do you think will be the biggest trend for 2023?
Well, I also have here written the second coming of the privacy wave. So I'm also waiting for that
Yeah.
probabilistic. The first time Apple is going to reject in game for like having probabilistic software inside, and then like we'll see some sort of a domino effect will explode it. We'll see. I do expect publishers to go more direct. Again, part of it is the power dynamic shift. You don't rely necessarily want to rely on what. So you have from 20, we have now 5 ad networks. Like, I don't know, we're running out of ad networks. They all bought each other. And then we have like an over reliance on third parties. So you don't want to necessarily marry them completely. You might want to be a bit more independent, have your own control your own destiny. And I do see that. I already see that happening. I think that will only increase in 2023. Then hybrid monetization model. One of the things that's interesting, I see CTV developing, going more kind of gaming, trying to have a freemium tier. I think that we'll see kind of like the same also then going also in gaming, when we have some sort of like in-app subscription, all of the above. You can kind of combine everything and kind of create a new beast to try to overcome some of the other revenue loss. So we'll see. Those are 3.
Yeah, we'll see. Daniel, can you share some thoughts about this? And especially, I think maybe something about what game genres, something about new mechanics. What can we expect in case of game development from 2023?
Sure. Well, it's definitely a speculation, right? Like I can't really foresee the future, but
Yeah.
but in general, users are more demanding. It's no secret. So we have to create more content kind of oriented games. So I'm very interested to see where runners and all those very original hyper casual games will go, but hybrid casual and either arcade are here to stay, as far as I'm concerned, as as it's also shown in the industry. And I'm very curious to see also what will happen with all the multiplayer kind of IO games. They used to be a really big part of the industry, and I'm very interested to see how the effect of user demanding more content and interest in the long run for the game will happen with the multiplayer games as well. And obviously, as I mentioned, like the execution of the games, like the level is going up. Studios need to work harder on their coding skills and need to find like someone to really support this growth.
Yeah. So thank you, Daniel. As I see, our session's time is almost over. I just want to remind our audience that we have a Q&A session, and on the Pan platform on the right side, you can always ask questions to our speakers. Yeah, and I hope we had more time because I think there's a lot of topics and a lot of things that we also can discuss today. And yeah, so yes, thank you a lot, Emma. Thank you, Daniel. And let's wait if you will have some questions from the audience today.
Thank you, Piyush, as well.
Thank
Oh,
you. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
well, I mean, there's always, if people have questions, want to talk about
Yeah.
data, economy, design, I can really see where my passion lies. I mean, I think all of us are on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, later after the session, everyone I think can ask you directly. They can find you on the Pine platform or LinkedIn, and you're on LinkedIn, right? And ask you some. I hope you will have time because it's the end of the year and holidays in some countries. Yeah, I hope you will have time to answer people's questions. Yeah.
If it's a good question, I'll make an exception.
What is a good
Maybe
question,
something
Emma?
about Apple.
That's just complain. If you want to complain with me, let's go. If you want to join, if you want to join our complaint letter, then I'm accepting. I'm accepting applications. It's a good, I don't know. I'm just like try and see.
Yeah. So, guys, and we have no questions. As I said, we have no questions. I think some people will definitely ask you on LinkedIn or in our chat. So thank you a lot, and I think we can add this fun discussion. Okay.
Thank you, guys. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
It's really
It was a
fun.
pleasure. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.